he goes, Timmy, we're not going to haul stone crab traps today. He says, buddy, we're going to go offshore and unload a pot boat from Colombia later on tonight.
Welcome to this episode of Chattin with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got Tim McBride. What's up, Tim?
Hi, man. Good.
How
I'm just
you
hanging
been?
out, man, down here in Florida, beating the heat.
No hurricanes yet, huh?
No, thank God. They just get worse every year because we're really fucking this planet up, man, big time. Our progenitors, put us on the threshold of what we're seeing right now. So it's kind of a bitch, but all you can do for now is take it in stride, man. So deal with the hot days.
Definitely. So I want you to take me back to when you were doing this. I want you to walk me through a day when you would be going to handle business. When you wake up in the morning, what do you do?
Well, I'll tell you what I can do is begin by the very first time I ever got involved in this. The first time I ever saw a boat, like the one that's being shown right there, behind us here.
Yeah.
Which is very cool. That looks like either a long line or a trawler. It's not a shrimp boat because there's no nets out there, but definitely a deep hauled vessel. You can tell by the way its bow section is and the way it's sitting. But anyways, yeah, no, I was, I had moved down here, from LA. I went back to Wisconsin for a little bit where I did my high school years. I grew up in North Carolina, and my best buddy at that time, when I finally went back home, from being out in LA, he calls me that next day. I was there. He goes, dude, I'm moving to Florida, tomorrow. He says, I'm going to drive down and go to work on a fishing boat, a crab boat, pull stone crab traps. And I knew what it was because I had done before. I had taken a drive down there just over the summer, and I went out on a boat and that, but didn't really, get the grasp of what it was I was really, looking at because I was just a kid. And he said, did you want to go? And I said, hell yeah, man. So I just packed all my shit, my Mustang, and off we went and wound up, a couple of days later at the dead end of Highway 29 down here in the Everglades. And the highway dead ends on a little tiny island, 139 acre little slice of paradise called Chokoloskee Island. And the island that you have to go over to get to the causeway to get to Chokoloskee, that's Everglades City. So between the two islands, they create this town, Everglades City, with a population of just under 400 people. And even still today, it's not much more than that, right around 500 people, simply because, there's a lot of old time families and a lot of, and people like that. Plus, they're not making any more islands, so there really isn't much,
no more space.
Yeah, there's no space to put any more shit. Wherever you can put some shit, there's probably some shit there by now, which is too bad because back in, I was growing up and around on the island, there were still areas on, on Chokoloskee Island where that were wooded. You can walk through a stretch of woods just to get to the other side of the island. And the typical beach or the island attire or accoutrement, if you will, was pair of cut off jeans and and bare feet, man. That's just how, that's how we got around. Bicycle or golf cart, or you walked, because it was less than a football field across the island, to anybody's house you wanted to go to. But we had got down there and he was, ready to work on the boat. And I began by I didn't really originally have a job on the boat. Up and his brother and sister-in-law, who were the reason why he moved down, because they ran the only fish house on the island at the time, his sister and brother-in-law. So the brother-in-law was a native, knew everybody. He grew up around here. So when we showed up out of town, from Bumfuck, wherever, they were from,
yeah,
nobody questioned us. Nobody questioned our integrity or our background or, like, these are cops. These guys are young cops. They're trying to, get in here or some shit. It was never that we were never looked upon that way because of where we came from. And
was it easily known though that they were doing something shady?
Well, no, you know what I mean. There was what it was you hear a lot of the talk. And now and then somebody mentioned pothauling or just stuff like that. But until you actually see it for yourself, I mean, it's just stories.
Yeah.
stories about, ghost stories about, these guys, hauling around a lot, like that, but never really paying much attention to it, because that's all it was at that time. I mean, it wasn't like just flagrantly everybody in town knew, because that was one of the greatest things about the story that I told was, them being able to keep this under wraps for as many years and as many generations as they did. But, we'll pass that, we'll touch on that a little bit while, but for right now's sake, when I came down to help his sister and brother-in-law finish completing building their new home on the island. So when the house was finished, the captain of the boat that my buddy was working with decided that he didn't like this other guy that was working with him because he didn't really know him. It was like from Michigan or some shit like that. But and that's up, trust and knowing people and the kind of, and working on a boat like that, in particular, Billy, captain, of the boat, wanted to get back into pothauling, which I discovered later on, but didn't trust this guy, but wanted, now that I was available, they, and stone crabbing is, it's a bust ass work, man. I mean, it'll make a fucking man out of you. It's some guys, and the turnover is fantastic because a lot of guys will work maybe, a half a season. It's a lot of guys would only get through a half a season and they just quit, or they won't even come back, and captain's always looking for good guys, and strong backs to work, because it's pulling these fucking traps, and and I'll send you along some pictures you put up, of what these traps look like. And they're not all that big. They're maybe 20 inches wide by, maybe 24 inches deep by maybe, 19 inches tall or what like that. And they'd have a wooden, lid that you could, just open like this. We were taking tires, radial tires, and cutting them into little strips and nailing them on the boards and using them as hinges, to open and close the boards on top of the trap. Yeah. And then two other small little pieces of wood just nailed in that you could turn them as a latch like that. So you turn the latch, open it, and you reach in and grab the crabs and just throw them out like that. So the traps are about 50 pounds or so a piece because the bottom 6 inches of the trap is full of concrete. Because when you push that fucker overboard, it's got to land on the bottom flat like this. Because the only way for them to get into the trap is through the funnel on top. So you have to weight that thing enough so when you throw it, when you pitch it off, just shove it off the back of the boat, it's got to land like that perfectly.
Yeah. What if it lands upside down? And how do you know if it's...
Well, it won't land. It won't, because you've got 45 pounds of concrete in the bottom of this damn thing. It's going to land bottom down, and they always do. They turn, as soon as you shove them in there, that concrete's, bang, they hit the bottom just like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the way we lay them out, and we got good enough to the point where after the first couple of, season or so, we were pulling about 600, I'm not going to say about, we pulled 600 traps a day.
Wow. That's a
I
lot.
could send you along up some pictures of what the best stern of a vessel like that looks like, and it's done in a similar fashion as to how the guys on Deadliest Catch, if you've ever seen this show, how they pull their traps in. Now, this by no means any comparison. I'm not trying to make a comparison by any means, because those fucking guys, you could pay me enough to do that fucking job.
Yeah, that's a little extreme. Their job. A little,
that's extreme, and it's fucking cold, and our season is through the winter months. It's cold enough as it is.
Was there an arm on your boat, or no?
No.
Okay.
There's a the only arm that's sticking out is a bit of a that goes up and goes over and has block and tackle attached to the end of it.
This kind of like it.
That's a shrimp boat. You can tell by the rigging and the netting off the side of the boat. And they'll drag these big nets off both sides of the boat. They'll drag those through the water for hours on end, and they're just scooping up. See, now that is more closer to a crab boat right there, because you can see what they've got stacked on the back there. Now those don't look like regular crab traps. There's some other kind of trap. They may be for somewhere up in the northwest or somewhere like that. They catch the round Dungeness crabs, and a lot of those round. I think those traps are round, and that's what those look like. But it's very similar. I
All
mean,
right,
they're
I
really.
have a picture of one. I have a picture of one.
If you have a picture of a stone crab vessel,
No,
you'll
I have
see.
another one coming up.
Oh,
I
okay.
I typed in Florida. More like this.
That's exactly it, right
Okay.
there. Exactly. And you see the guys standing on the stern. Now, those are the two guys that are working right side and left side. And you see the padding on the back of the boat. You see those two marks on the back of the boat on the stern and the very back. Those, when you pull the trap up, and I think you can see just barely over the guy more toward the stern. You see over his shoulder that little piece of arms, that metal piece sticking out. It looks like a window building in the back, but it's actually a bar sticking out. That would have a block and tackle tied, or on the end of it, swinging. So what they do is that boat would, one man on one side of the stern, one guy on the other side of the stern, and each of them have, now when I relate this to the show ladies catch, they have that when they throw their grapple hook. I mean, they're using two big bags.
This is the tackle, right? The block that they pull up the things with.
This is a smaller version of a crab boat. This is a one man version of it. Exactly. But our boats are a lot bigger. Like we see the boats in the background, a little bit bigger like that.
Another one.
And when you have twin pullers on the stern, you have a guy on the port stern and a guy on the starboard stern. And what happens is now what they're fishing, that's perfect. That's a typical crab boat, but what they have on board right there are lobster traps. They're going down to the bay to fish lobster in the Florida Bay. The reason I know that is because of the size of the trap.
But still, you use all kinds of different boats over the years, right?
Yeah, that's a stone crab vessel, as well as a lobster vessel, because ours doubled as stone crab during the summer. Stone crab season is only from October 15th to May 15th. And then from that point on through the summer, when you're not working and preparing your stone crab traps for the next season, you're taking those things down to the Florida Bay, which is only, 80-mile trip down there. We only had 1,000 of these, and we put those out, and we catch lobster, Florida lobster, crawfish, we call them, during the summer times. And we'd go down maybe every 2 weeks, and pull them twice a month like that. They would soak like that. But that was always a fun trip, just to do that. But yes, this is the type of vessel. And you can see on the stern, you see that metal thing with the rounded edges on the top, rounded corners. Exactly. That piece right there. That's what that's a newer version of that just started coming into style, as we were phasing out these, the new generations and stuff are using these newer techniques and stuff like that. The trap would actually hit the back of that when you pull it onto the boat. You'll see the block and tackle hanging just above it. The trap would hit the back of that, and it would come up, and that thing would lay down, and the trap would slide up right in front of the guy. So it was right on that table in front of him. Now ours would be the block and tackles hanging there. The trap would come up and hang from that. We would pull it in and release it and let it sit on the stern. The stern being just where that guy's hip is.
Yeah.
The next step and the easiest thing about the whole thing is, when my buddy's pulling a trap, I'm pushing one off. Now, when he's got one on board, and captain's motoring up to the next trap that's in the line. They're about maybe 30 yards apart. So he has, between the time he picks his trap up until we get to the next buoy, to get his open, clear the crab out of it, rebait it, clean the funnels, clean the barnacles off of it, and shut it and clean it, take any knots out of the rope, repair any boards or anything needs to happen to it. So when I grab my buoy to pull my trap in, he's pushing his over.
So every time we pick one up, we drop. It's in unison.
Picking up, he's dropping. I get one, he drops one in its place. So there's always one put back where the other one's picked up from.
Yeah.
And that we would pull half the line, 300 traps, and typically that would run half a line would run anywhere from 70 to 20 miles till you get to the end buoy. We couldn't wait to see that end, when that buoy with a stick in the end of it, and we're not using the great big giant bags like they do on those commercial big giant commercials. We're using a styrofoam about the size of a soccer ball that has our number melted into it, that we can tell that's ours.
People steal these traps and things
but,
and do things like that out there happen.
No, actually, there were not people respected that even in those days, because you get your ass shot, somebody will shoot you, and it's highly illegal, by the way, if you do caught, with your hand in somebody's traps, man. I mean, they're going to take your boat, they'll take your license, they'll take your, everything from you. I mean, it should be, because this is a living that we're all trying to make out there. And it's tough enough work as it is, man. I mean, like I said, look at all these fucking traps in this thing, man.
That's a lot.
There's probably, what am I looking at? There's probably 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. There's probably maybe 200 of those large, 300 of those large traps on there. And those fuckers weigh. And then we have to take those out and throw those in the same pattern, same back and forth pattern, and then go back around the next day. And then those we can pull, and those sort of things. But more to the point, this is the scenario that was imparted to me about how the boat works. And, you get up early in the morning, like 3 or 4 in the morning.
But did they tell you you're going to be smuggling pot? Like, do they come out and tell you?
Didn't say a word. So they just, they said, okay, Timmy's come to work on the boat. So I said, all right, cool, man. After they explained this, you wake up like first thing at first light, when you can first see in the morning, you wake up, and, as soon as you can start to see that first buoy, you start pulling, because, I mean, you got some fucking work to do, man. You got a lot of shit, a lot of traps to get through. And it's not always just breezing through one to the other, dude. I mean, you got weather, you got seas, it doesn't make any difference what the weather's doing. You're pulling them fucking traps. I've been out there on days where, we have some traps on shore and deep in shallow water, and then some that are spread out offshore in a little bit deeper water in areas, because we had at one point, when we got into this, 6,000 traps, just our one boat, like that boat you see behind you, 6,000 stone crab traps. We had 610 different spots throughout the Gulf that we would go to each day, a different spot. Come back around and start over again.
And that's every day. You don't take no days off.
We take, well, yeah, Saturday and Sundays, like every other day, 5 days straight. Then we take 2 days off. Sometimes we work Saturday, it just depends. And then, but the thing of it is if you pull, your first 15 traps or so, and the captain decides he doesn't like what's coming out of the traps, he'll turn back and yell, pick them up. And then he'll turn around and go back to that first one. And now you're picking them up. Now you're coiling ropes. Now you're clearing them out again. You rebait them, put the rope inside the trap, and you carry it back there to the back to see the back of the wheelhouse. You can barely see it behind the traps.
Yeah.
You carry this trap from where that guy's standing all the way to the back, and you start stacking these fuckers on there. One guy after the other, stacking, put us on a stack, go get another one, stack it. And you tell you got all 600 of them fuckers on there. Captain goes somewhere where he thinks, okay, this looks like good Bob, let's try this. Throw him off again. Now that's a day's fucking work. But besides all of that, this is how the scenario was imparted. As soon as the sun comes up, we're working. Well, I get on the boat, and the bunks are in the wheelhouse up there with the captain. And I wake up, and the fucking sun's up. I'm thinking, well, they told me that we're supposed to start before the sun gets up, so I lean out of the bunk and I look up, and there's Captain Billy's looking down at me from his captain's chair. He's got a big grin on his face. He goes, Timmy, we're not going to haul stone crab traps today. He says, buddy, we're going to go offshore and unload a pot boat from Colombia later on tonight.